Once there was an explosion, a bang which gave birth to time and space.
Once there was an explosion which gave life to planets and stars. Now humanity is on the verge of extinction. We know quite a lot about the sixth extinction from the main story, but the reason why it started is still quite vague. I would like to discuss here the origin of the Death Stranding and whether it really is that bad for humanity as a species. But we should begin by reviewing some facts we get from the story.
Life on Earth has been rocked by many extinctions, great and small, including the Big Five.
First of all, the Death Stranding existed even before humanity, so it obviously cannot be made by people. The event actually is associated with the great extinctions of different ages.
And if you examine the Earth's strata, its history, if you will, you'll find corallium deposits that can be dated to each. What if the manifestation of beaches and other associated phenomena correspond to extinction-level events?
You mean?
Yes. Our Death Stranding could just be the latest of many.
During the history of Earth, there were exactly 5 such events, and we are in the middle of the 6th.
Sixth extinction. Come on.
All the living species follow the natural laws of the universe. New species come into existence, they grow and evolve, adapting to the changing environment. They also compete with each other for resources, whether it is a food, a land, or an oil. The fittest species survive, transferring their genes to the future generations. The whole point of this process of the life is improving the species, improving their skills to adapt, finding the best ones. So, competition is quite an important part of this process. It gives us the scale we can use to measure our advantages and disadvantages comparing with others, and if we can make some adjustments. If you ever run a distance alone and with a partner, you must have noticed that the results with a partner will be much better averagely than if you run alone. This analogy is fair on each step of a life ladder. You compete with your friends. Your organization also competes with other organizations trying to offer better services to customers and get more profit in the end. Governments compete for resources with each other and better trade conditions, and so on. Now imagine that you actually crushed all your opponents. None are left. Would you be happy? Well, you probably would for a while, but what happens after your victory? Now suddenly you don't have anyone you can compare your results with. You may have hard time understanding whether you have chosen the right direction and if you are moving fast enough toward your goals. Hell, at some point you probably won't have any comprehensive goals at all. The competition is over and evolution is no more here. Those who have won now have enough resources to secure their success and no reason to keep adapting and improving their skills. Those who are not among winners have no chance to rise due to the pressure made by the winners who gathered too much resources and become too powerful. To prevent such events from happening, modern society has anti-monopoly laws, and the nature has the Death Stranding.
You see, I've come to understand the truth of the Death Stranding. Oh, there's so much you people don't know.
It is sort of a death sentence to the dominating species, indicating that it stopped evolving and, in a natural sense, has no meaning to live and should give up the space to new, more adaptive creature.
There's no stopping the sixth extinction. No matter what you, me, or anybody else does, humanity has a few 100,000 years left, tops.
In other words, the Death Stranding breaking down resource bases of the monopoly, allowing others to get access to those resources. It is sort of a reset button of evolution, a cleaning process. Now, does it mean doom for the species who get that kind of a death sentence?
We all know what's coming. Why delay the inevitable? Why don't we just cut to the chase? Accept our fate. Let the creatures before us.
Well, on the one hand, the information we received from Hartman and Emily tells us there were at least no species so far who managed to avoid such tragic fate. However, Emily also tells that the Death Stranding is rather a challenge than a punishment.
Before each of the Big Five, life rebelled. They fought back, evolved in order to survive. The extinction isn't just an ending. It's an opportunity.
This thought is quite important in my opinion, because there is no fault in action of the dominant species. It won the competition because it was better than the others were at that time. And since the goal of any competition is to win, I think crushing your opponents seems to be the most logical way of action you could choose. So why should it be punished for being successful? In my opinion, the Death Stranding is rather an attempt to create an outside competition, so to speak, a stimulus to make the species adapt again. We see manifestation of such stimulus in Timefall and BT, for instance. The species suppose either to overcome the pressure, adapt and survive stronger than ever, or perish and give up the space for others to try. Evolutionary, in my opinion at least, both outcomes lead to success. It seems that having a good goal, trying not to die for instance, is quite a strong stimulus to evolve. The moves of the extinction entity in the game also indirectly confirms the good nature of the Death Stranding.
I am an extinction entity. It's my fate to lead our species to extinction.
Although she implicates it, I do not believe that the goal of EE is to destroy the humanity. On the contrary, it seems more logical that invocation of EE is the last chance to save the dominant species. The nature summons her to show the reason why we are in a Death Stranding, why it began, and what fate we shall face if she failed to stop the stagnation. The thing is that Emily chose creating the false targets as her strategy because, as we know,
A soul that's a lie. There was no Amelie. Only me and the beach.
she even created a terrorist group to show the UCA how they should proceed competing with Higgs. She also organized fake abduction of herself to set a goal for the UCA. Each success of the Higgs group showed UCA their mistakes, allowing them to adapt and fight back with a better strategy. In fact, Sam wouldn't join the UCA and wouldn't even travel to the east without the explosion triggered by Higgs at the beginning of the adventure. The climax scene on the beach also indicates her true intention.
So, knowing what you know now, you have two choices.
Is getting shot one of them.
Getting shot might not be a choice here, but the Last Stranding, the reset of the universe, just make no sense. First, how shooting Sam here could be a terrible mistake, but dooming the entire universe is not. Won't this explosion also annihilate Sam? What is the point here? And what is more important? The Last Stranding she describes would wipe out all the product of billions years of evolution. All the history of species and their genes would be gone. The evolution will start again from scratch. And why would you do this? What we see here is yet another bluff from Emily trying to manipulate Sam into making the right choice.
An EE doesn't have that option for itself. But in my nightmares, I saw another future. One that you chose. One where extinction is hope against total annihilation.
And in fact, there is no choice at all. Either you adapt to new challenges or you die.
And you may be living on borrowed time, but you still have hope.
We always live on a borrowing time because no one lives forever and in the end we all die. We just have to wake up and understand that the environment will not change to our needs. We must adapt in order to get a better spot in this world. In any world, really. In order to find a better place in this world for yourself, we must adapt. The ultimate thought here is, although we have not stopped the Death Stranding, but the humanity took the first steps towards the right direction, towards the way of adaptation to this crisis. That was the exact purpose of the Death Stranding and EE. But what would happen if there were no such control unit as the Death Stranding? When species or organization or nation has no competitors, it is a monopoly, and it is not a healthy situation in this area of business to anybody. When somebody becomes a monopoly, the evolving stops here. It will destroy all the weak opponents before they get any chances to compete. But the monopoly itself stops progress, since it has no more objective goals, which is to compete with others and prevail in this competition. It will face a long process now of stagnation and degradation. Furthermore, this process actually never stops. It grows from outer to inner space, deductively, so to speak. Dominant species form dominant nation. Dominant nation form dominant minorities or organizations, and so on and so on. On each level, those monopolies suppress any would-be competitors. And suddenly, instead of just one species dominating others, we have a video game conglomerate allegedly suppressing talented games devs to avoid a direct competition with them. And those devs hint this in the game plot.
Still going on about that, huh?
I would like to share my own story. Recently, I faced the problem that I have just discussed in the main part of the video. The thing is, I planned to release the first video on this channel last December after I finished walkthrough of the Death Stranding. The climax of the story was so good that I decided to share my own thoughts here. But I had quite interesting problems during that time. When I finished the script and recorded the voice, I realized that basically everything was wrong. The voice, the pronunciation, the script, the concept, the microphone I used, the room I recorded in. So, I repeated those steps, a couple of times actually. Each time I saw new problems and new solutions to them. In the end, since I felt the final product was still a garbage, I set aside this idea for a while. Now I see that I was under influence of the same stagnation I mentioned in the main part. I didn't have anyone who knew a thing about creating videos, so basically nobody could tell me what my actual target should be at the beginning. So I was floating in a fog of doubts. Anyway, now I'm sure that this approach was wrong, and I hope that I have enough willpower now to navigate myself in this area of video creating. Even now I see a ridiculous amount of problems and understand the clumsiness of the voice acting and grammar mistakes, etc. Nonetheless, I decided to release this video as a milestone for myself, for my future work. I defined two simple criteria I want to follow. The first one is every next video should be technically better than the previous one. And second, the timing. Delaying here is a game crusher, so I have to have a strict schedule. Let it be one video a week. I believe that if I am able to follow those two simple rules, and I intend to do so, the quality of the content shall get dramatically better and I will improve some of my skills as well. This is all I have for today. Next time we will try to project the narrative of the Death Stranding on our reality and find out if we live in the time of the Death Stranding, and if so, when actually did this process begin.
Brought you an astronaut. Mankind can go anywhere, even outer space.